Welcome back, AD20 here, back again with some knife therapy, and today I have for you the Demko knives MG AD20. This is a year after ownership. I've used this knife quite a bit and did my normal testing with it as well. Mr. Andrew Demko, the owner of Demko Knives, is probably one of our main innovators, creating different locks, kind of like the Gavin and Grant Hawk. It's really awesome to see that. He's made arguably the strongest lock on the market with the Triad lock. Then he went to the Scorpion lock and now the Shark lock. Let's get the specs out of the way of the knife really quick. You have a total length of 8 5/8 inches, so it's a full-size knife. You have a blade length of 3 5/8 inches, a grip area in this area right here of 3.75 inches, and if you want to choke up right here, you have a grip area of 4.5 inches. Pretty thick handle scale thickness of 0.57, and a whopping blade stock of 0.175. That's a chunky monkey. The behind the edge thickness on my particular knife ranges from around 26 to 27 thousandths at its thinnest portions and sharpened at 18 degrees per side. This AD20 right here was a DLT exclusive in crew wear, one of my favorite steels, and they normally come in CPM 20CV or CPM 3V. Both of them awesome steels. I would have been happy with any of them. However, if I had to choose one of those two, it would be 3V because of its tough nature, and this is a hard use knife. The standard blade shapes that you can get these in are the clip point and the shark's foot, which is basically like a sheep's foot style blade. I prefer the aesthetics of this one, but I love the utility of the shark's foot, especially in the 20.5s, which is the smaller one. Let's take a close look at this blade. You have a nice, attractive stonewash finish that hides wear very well. After all the testing I did with this knife, you don't see any major gouges or anything. At least I don't see any. And he left the blade completely sterile, giving it that custom feel. Very nicely done there. You have a row of jimping up here that is very functional. It's right where it needs to be. It's a fine cut jimping, and it really grips a hold of that thumb whenever you bear down on it. It's not sharp other than that. You have you have a very robust tip that should definitely be able to handle some light duty prying. I know that's not what a folder's for, but it gets done. And I'm telling you, I've done it, and it can handle it just fine. That is a very thick piece of steel toward the end right there. This knife came with one of the nicest edges I've ever gotten out of box. It had just the right amount of toothiness to that edge to where it was a very aggressive cutter. And I used this knife. I did a test initially, probably 3 months after I had the knife, and I planned on reviewing it, but you know, life got in the way, and I totally forgot I never had reviewed it. So that footage was long gone because it's on one of my old cameras. And whenever I went to do the testing with this one, I ended up having to sharpen the edge because I had been using it for a long time. I followed the factory bevel at 18 degrees. I sharpened it up to 600 grit and stropped it with 3.5 micron diamond paste. And I got that same, toothiness back to that edge that it came with, and I really, really enjoy that. That's just what I've been enjoying the most. And I love that 18 degree bevel. It's still strong and it's still slicey. The heat treat of the knife is definitely excellent. You can usually tell by how it sharpens. The knife sharpened up very, very easily. It deburred very cleanly, and it took a very, very sharp edge. That's one thing I like about crew wear. You can get a very, very nice bite to that edge if you leave it nice and toothy, or you can take it up, I don't ever usually polish crew wear, but you can. I did have a spider coat that I did it in. It was okay. Look down here, you have a well-executed sharpening notch. It did not widen up after that first sharpening. I may have one more sharpening before it starts to widen up. I could easily pull that down some if I wanted to. Not sure if that's something you can do, send it to Andrew or not, but you know, it's not the hardest thing you do with a file, a diamond file. When I first started using the knife, I already knew, just because of Andrew Demko's pedigree, I already knew that the knife was going to be a hard use knife. I already knew it was tough. You could feel it, you can hear it, and I didn't expect the knife to perform, you know, regular EDC tasks all that well. But boy, was I wrong! Was I wrong? You know, it handled all the normal materials, the cardboard. It blew through cardboard like, I don't know, it just felt like a much slicier knife. Then, you know, even whenever I got to the rope, the sisal rope, it was a breeze to cut because the blade is so thick, you have extra weight. So it wasn't hard to push through. I was push cutting all the rope. Hopefully y'all get to see that. And I think I cut 60 or 70 cuts with it, and the edge was still good after all that cutting. The things that I was worried about was the big thick rubber tubing. A lot of times when you have a thick bevel like this, whenever I first bite into it, it'll want to pinch the sides right here. But even that, you know, I guess this finish is nice and smooth. It didn't struggle. It wasn't, you know, as easy to do as, say, a super, you know, like a super thin stock, like a bug out with the very thin geometry. Not saying the bug out has very thin geometry, but something like that, of course that's going to perform a little bit better. But, you know, I just was trying to show that even though this thing is a beefy, hard use, you know, just massive behemoth of a knife, it can still handle those EDC tasks, and this one did it really well. Whenever I was testing this knife, it was up. I had 5 other knives that I was testing with it. 3 of those knives were, you know, those thin, slicey knives. Maybe not with the thinnest stock, but the edge geometry was slicey on them. And this outperformed every knife, all 5 knives that I was testing. I kind of expected it to outperform 2 of them because they were budget knives and the steel wasn't the best. But this one, it was a joy to do every one of those tests. Some of those tests are excruciating for me. I mean, my hands are really beat up, and sometimes those tests can take a toll on me. But it one after another test, it kept on surprising me more and more and more. And I got really excited about it because I love bringing this type of thing to y'all so you can see how some of these, you know, perform. You know, of course, I like those thin, slicey knives a little more than the hard use knives. But whenever a hard use knife like this can perform in both aspects, I mean, I think that's awesome. All right, let's close up the knife. Hardware on the show side, your pivot, you have a Demko knife stamped into this massive, massive pivot. Love it. And on the opposite side, it says Wampum, PA. So his where he lives is stamped into the side with the Torx head. You have Torx T8 throughout the knife, and you have some very crisp Torx heads that are very well done. Only thing I could say about these 3 body screws is I wish they were a little bit deeper, because whenever I put my bit in there, it's right at the face. I wish it was as deep as the pivot. That said, they're very high quality. As long as you're using high quality bits, you shouldn't have a problem taking those apart. Not sure his policies on taking apart knives, but you know, I'm still gonna do it. The G10 on this one is a jade G10 with a diamond texture on it. I guess that's a diamond texture, but it's a very nice looking, and it offers a really good bit of grip. You have a very large lanyard hole here. You have 3 ginormous barrel standoffs that are giving you a lot of support from side to side pressures on that. When you're twisting that blade, it's keeping that knife very rigid. And not only do you have those 3 standoffs making this, a hard use knife, you also have 3 massive pins, 2 for the lock and 1 for the lock, the stop pin, that really make this knife feel bulletproof. The pocket clip that came on it was just a regular bent stainless clip that I didn't enjoy too much. It functioned just fine. I threw this Pops deep carry clip on there from Etsy, and I like it. It does stick up a little bit and it goes past the scales. I usually hate that, but I've been enjoying carrying it and it had no problems with it. So I'm not going to really show it in the pocket because this is not the clip that comes with it. One thing that I did notice about the clip that came with it, it was a little tight, which is good. You want to hold this heavier knife in your pocket, but it does sit on top of the texture, so it was tearing up my pockets a little bit. Something to note. They make aftermarket clips. I think Lynch makes one for the 20.5. I'm not sure if it fits this or not, but I'm sure he makes one that does. I would think you could swap the clip over. Oh no, you need another. I don't know. I'm not sure if you can swap the clip over or not. I would think all you need is the clip because you could put it here. I just don't know if it would fit. Anybody that knows that, let me know down below. I'll pin your comment. Let's take a look at this awesome action. When you release this lock right here, that thing comes falling down. It's riding on cage bearings, and being that the way this lock is set up, when you pull it back, you have no friction pushing against the blade from a lock bar. So it of course it should be a free dropper. It'd probably still be a free dropper on washers. Very solid and controlled if you want it to be. The deployment with the thumb stud is nice and comfortable. You have 2 massive thumb studs right there, easily to get your finger on there. I like slow rolling it. I just love the sounds this knife makes, the clickety clack clack click. You also, on this one, this is the one with both deployment methods on the blade, with the thumb studs and the blade hole. I find the blade hole a little bit easier to spotty flick, but you could also use it to slow roll it as well. But whenever I slow roll it, I use that thumb stud mainly, or if I thumb flick it, I use the thumb stud also. I prefer both on there. You can also get them with just the thumb studs and without the blade hole. I had one of those with the FRN scales. I just didn't like it as much. I don't know. I didn't need it anyway because I had this one. Along with that good action, this thing has some super tight tolerances. Look how tight it is in there. And yes, there are bearings in there. Very tight. No play. Like usually if you take a blade when it's closed like this, you can muster some play side to side. But with all the, stop pins and all the locator points you have here, this thing is rock solid. Being that you have that blade hole and dual thumb studs, and because of how this lock is set up like this on top, you can easily access it left or right-handed. So this knife is completely ambidextrous if the pocket clip can be swapped over. I'm hoping it can, because definitely a great knife, both left and right-handed people. I won't be able to, well, I could use a little wrist, but very nice to have that function left or right-handed. All right, let's take a look at this lock. The Shark lock, Demko's new patented lock right here. Basically, you have this bar right here with the ramp that comes up with some jimping here and some jimping right here. It's fine cut jimping. It does a great job of catching that finger. I don't know if y'all can see through there or not, but basically captured inside this this bar right here, it's like milled out. There's a circle for a spring. This right here goes into this bar, allowing this, whenever you pull back, it's pulling back on that spring tension. So there's tension forward whenever the blade is open, keeping the blade locked open. What you do to disengage it, you put your finger up there, and you're basically pulling it up. You pull back and up, and it'll release that blade like that, and you can see that stop pin, basically kind of like the triad lock, it wedges itself. This goes onto the tang, and then you have a stop pin right here, so you cannot muster any up and down play on this knife. No side to side whatsoever. One of the strongest feeling locks I felt personally, and I'm sure that's how all Demko's knives are, because he makes absolute tanks that should be able to handle just about anything a folding knife should be able to handle. To save weight, he doesn't have any like so-called liners in here. You have partial liners. You have very thick slabs of G10 that are super rigid. You're not flexing that in the lead. I cannot flex it one bit, but if you look inside, let's see if I can show you this. You look inside there. There is I don't know if y'all can see that. Right. Yeah, there you go. I'm going to take this off. Sorry about that. Right here, you can see this stainless steel plate that goes to right here. And it comes, you can see it right. I don't know if you can see that. It comes to right there. And it houses your shark lock and the bearing races for the blade, so you don't have to worry about bearings riding on G10, and that gives some extra strength to the stop pins as well, with the stainless liners being in there. So he really thinks of everything when it comes to absolute strength. And now I'm finding out, not just strength, it's a super usable knife. All right, let's get a quick weight. First in grams, 172.3 grams and 6 ounces, basically 6.077. That's it's getting heavy, but I will say it carries pretty well. You're definitely gonna know you have a knife in your pocket, but it's not as bad as I expected it to be. It is carryable. For me, the 4 Max is a little too big. This one, I can manage this, especially if I have jeans on. And I didn't have any issues with putting my hand and scraping this. I thought I would, but it wasn't any issue whatsoever for me. One thing I was also worried about in the ergo department was the way this fin stuck up off the scales. I thought it would catch my hand, but I tried every different grip. Mainly I used the hammer grip. That was just felt the best. And that extra thickness in the hand and the width really fills out the hand nicely. It was comfortable. You could choke up a little bit. And in all the grips, there was never once where I was like, wow, that's killing my hand. Sometimes I noticed it was there, but it wasn't bad. And for me to say that, come on, it shouldn't be a problem for anybody. I definitely expected it to be, though. I will not lie. I thought it would be terrible, but not bad. If you wanted to, I guess you could use it right here in this thumb ramp. I guess that's why they have that jimping there. But for me, this choke up position was nice, and this hammer grip where you're behind it anyway was very nice for me. You could reverse it if you wanted to. That's comfortable. And if you wanted to do this, you could do that as well, this reverse pull. So ergos, it was good. It wasn't, if it was like a contoured knife, but like I said, it filled the hand nicely, and it was comfortable enough for me. Quick size comparisons. You have the Microtech SOCOM Alpha and the Hinder Eclipse, Spyderco PM2, Para 3. All right, my nitpicks and complaints. I didn't have many. I'm taking the knife for what it is, a hard use knife. So I'm not gonna talk about how thick it is behind the edge, because it shouldn't be. I do wish that these were a little bit easier to acquire. They're small batch done in Demko's factory, so I get it. I just wish, I hate doing a review and it's not something that y'all can easily obtain. They do become available, but you just got to get them as soon as you see them. Also, of course, I didn't really like the pocket clip. It's functional. It's not hurting the functionality of the knife whatsoever, but I just prefer deep carry, and this one doesn't thrash up my pockets as much. So overall value of the knife. For me, I can definitely see the value. It's USA made, small batch, fine-tuned by Demko. New super strong lock that required, engineering and Demko's expertise, and a blade that performed outstanding. So a very good heat treat that really took me by surprise. It was very fun to use. It has a very tight tolerances, like I showed before. Super solid lockup. And it's got that fidget factor. Love the sounds. That click, clack, clack, click, 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 clack, click, 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 clack, 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 click. But, overall, I think it's a great knife. Now, if none of that stuff I just said is important to you and you think it's overpriced, then just don't buy it. At this price point, I think they run around $400 for the machine ground. I see the value. If you don't, then it's not for you. So that anything over, like $200, it's definitely just your preference, unless it's just a terrible knife. So there you go. If you have any questions for me, comments, concerns, please leave them down below. I hope everybody's having an absolute amazing Sunday, and I will see y'all on the next one. Peace.